Today we're getting into an accounting firm's workflow nightmare, good old cleanup bookkeeping. You know that crap you do once a year, or maybe you do it right before the business tax return gets done, and you lift the lid on that sucker and there's no telling what you're gonna find inside. Is the bookkeeping half done? Is it fully done? Has nothing been done? Did they do a bunch of stuff and I would rather them have not done anything? Today we're talking about how to systematize that work. Believe it or not, is that a thing? It's gotta get done at some point. But do we want to be doing it during tax season? Is it realistic to think we can do 100 of those in January? And how do we put it on a 3-tier proposal in a way that will make it feel like it's a little more premium? Take the same work, make it twice as profitable by dressing it up a bit, making it feel more premium. We're going to talk about how to do that today. Let's get into it. Okay, we are in our summer service systematization series, going through the most common services for accounting firms and how to standardize them, how to build them into a repeatable process rather than just hiring a bunch of accountants and telling them, you'll figure it out, just go do it however the client wants you to do it. Because doing that is a recipe for disaster. And one example of where you can create a complete mess for yourself in terms of the annual cadence of how you serve your clients is letting a whole bunch of clients just rock up and bring you their books in whatever state they're in and then expect you to make magic of them. It's why a growing number of accounting firms, they say if we're going to do your tax work, we have to also do your books. Because then we've got total control over what goes into the tax prep process, as opposed to letting clients just rock up with whatever they've got, try to iron out the issues and then put it in the tax return. That's a very hard thing to build standardized processes around, or any expectation of how much is this going to cost me? And you're like, well, tell me how crap your books are this year. Now, as part of a series that we're doing that's digging deeper into the service library framework, all that information is linked in the show notes. This is going to feel kind of arcane if you haven't gone through that before, but it's kind of like my best resource I can give you for how to systematize work inside of your accounting firm. Over, I think almost 4,000 accounting firms are using it now. But cleanup bookkeeping is defined separately in the service library than bookkeeping because it's a whole different ball of wax. And most tax firms right now, we're actually having tax pros do cleanup bookkeeping, even though that has absolutely nothing to do with tax work. And I can tell you, early on in my career, the number of hours wasted having tax pros who aren't super comfortable with accounting systems because it's not what they spend most of their time in, trying to figure out how to fix stuff in accounting software, you can make a lot of messes real quick. And so this is something in my firm that actually, over time, started to get peeled apart into different teams and even into different times of the year, the cleanup bookkeeping versus the company's tax prep. Now, the other context where you're going to do cleanup bookkeeping is when you are taking on a new bookkeeping client. So no matter what, when they're coming in the door, you're going to have to sign off on whatever the state of things are before you start your month-over-month work. And this I also would call cleanup bookkeeping. It is a separate line on the proposal. It is a whole different conversation with the client than whatever the ongoing fees are, because it's just something that's got to happen. So what we're trying to do here, the whole exercise, is prevent the members from my team from going off and doing this stuff however they want to, prevent the clients from being able to dictate our process to us. It's no, we're the experts. We're going to set the process. And you can see how if you started an accounting firm tomorrow, you're like, yeah, no, all this is going to be systematized. We're going to do all the work the same way, easy peasy. But if you were like me and my firm, I'm like, well, I love that for you, but I already got a whole bunch of clients. And don't judge me, but we're not doing all the work the same way right now. So I need a flexible framework that can kind of shove all that stuff into as common of a system as possible, but also give us a shared language to get it to trend to be more similar long term. And to do this, inside of the service that I would call cleanup bookkeeping, we've got 6 service items or 6 variables in how we will service different clients in getting this work done. Those 6 variables, they are the source platform. That is the accounting platform where the information's coming from. There is the platform we'll use going forward, because those are not always the same thing, right? They may bring me something in Excel. I may put it in QuickBooks Desktop or QBO or Xero or something like that. 3rd service item, months that we need to review. 4th service item, the number of months we need to enter or complete from scratch. 5th service item, the accounting method. And 6th, the speed. In our case, we used weeks until expected completion. Now, Got some other potential service items that may make sense for you to use. And then we're going to talk about how to make this work more profitable, how to present it in a 3-tier proposal. But first, going a little deeper on each of these service items. 1, source platform. What is the accounting software that's currently being used? Like, how is that information being provided to you? This is where we can be flexible. It's where we can lock things down to say, like, oh, you're on Intact? Let me tell you, I got a great referral for you. Let me have you go talk to this person. It's also probably a pretty big driver of price and like your excitement for whether you want to do it to begin with. Now, the second variable here, the platform you will use going forward. Normally, this is going to funnel into the handoff to your like entity tax prep team or your bookkeeping team, if this is now going to be an ongoing bookkeeping project. But again, the goal of all these variables here is for a collection of variables to bubble up to like, clean up bookkeeping 2 and that having its own task template in our practice management system. So that when a client accepts an engagement with Cleanup Bookkeeping 2, all those tasks get pushed to the practice management system, and my team knows exactly what to do. Obviously, what platform we're going to be doing the bookkeeping in, that's an important variable there. Third variable, months to review. So how many months are we going back and reviewing the bookkeeping? Especially with new clients, this can be a tough one to nail down. Like, how into the weeds are we really going to get, beyond 12 months back? Sometimes you need to really dig into that. Other times you don't. Sometimes you will start and realize, okay, we're going to be amending some returns here. And hopefully this comes up actually in the discovery process when you're doing some initial poking around on the books and the return. But the number of months that we're going to review, this has to be defined. And normally it can't be an infinite number of months. This is something we actually have to communicate to the client to say, we're going to look back to here. We are not like assuming responsibility for your books back to the beginning of time. Like, we will go back here, but no farther. Next variable, the months that we're actually going to complete from scratch. It is one thing for somebody to bring you cleanup books that are quote unquote done through December. It's another for them to bring you ones that are quote unquote done through June or not done at all. Fifth, the accounting method. Obviously, this can be a big driver of complexity and how much work this is going to be. For me, it was a driver of who on my team this work went to as well. So if it was pretty straightforward cash basis stuff, we had a lot of folks that could do that. If it was hairier accrual stuff, that went to some other select members of the team. And then the last variable we used was speed. That was how much time it was going to take us to do it. Foreshadowing, this could be a driver of what you have in your gold package versus what you have in your bronze package. So how long is it going to take to get this stuff done? Where am I in the queue? So those are the 6 drivers for how I would talk about different ways we can deliver this service to a client and how we systematize those tasks on the back end internally. Other potential variables you could have here. 1, info intake method. Can we self-service and get all that stuff ourselves? Or is it going to be a bunch of work? Do we have to go to the client's office? Stuff like that. Another, the number of stakeholders involved in uncategorized transactions. I have some situations where I'd have to go to 20 people in the company to figure out what was this or what was that. And that vastly impacts the work that goes into getting the books done if I have to chase down that many people. Class or location tracking, transaction volume, account volume, even budgeted hours. The goal is to get to the most relevant set of variables that describe all the different ways that you do cleanup bookkeeping for clients, and hopefully over time getting them to be a little more similar, but at a minimum having like that internal language with your team so that everybody understands what it means when you talk about cleanup bookkeeping too. Or here's how many months we're going to have to enter. Well, how many months do we have to review? That's a number that we need also. Am I going back and looking at all the months 3 years back, or do I only care about these 12 months? This episode is sponsored in part by Ignition. Come. Here's the thing about client billing. You can't bill for the time you spend billing. You can't. It is pure waste. And we're bad at billing because it's icky. You let things slide, you don't get paid. You waste time chasing people for money. That's not what I did. I didn't want to waste time chasing them, and so I just eat it. Don't do that. This is where Ignition comes in, the leading revenue generation platform for accountants and professional services. When I was running my firm, Ignition wiped out our AR, it's true, and significantly reduced the time spent billing clients, saving our partners over 1,000 hours in the first year because they didn't have to bill all that stuff manually, man. With Ignition, we won more business with impressive online proposals. No more hustling PDFs and Word docs. We automatically pulled payment up front or at the end of a job when it was done. No more dialing for dollars. We transitioned our firm to more recurring revenue and better managed scope creep. No more leaving money on the table. Ignition is making thousands of firms more money and genuinely made us more profitable. Check out why over 7,000 of the smartest businesses run on Ignition at ignitionapp.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. This episode is brought to you in part by ClientHub, the practice management system. If you are considering a new practice management system, there's no way that you're not overwhelmed. Let me give you the TLDR on who are the people that need to be exploring ClientHub specifically. ClientHub started out as a really good sort of two-sided task management system for bookkeeping firms. So you've got your own tasks to manage, but we also push tasks to clients when they're holding us up and we need information from them to get that stuff done, right? ClientHub is one of the client portal first PMs that makes that as smooth as possible for your clients. But increasingly, they're getting into all things workflow, specifically your bookkeeping workflows. And so if there's one thing it does really well, it is for folks that don't want to have a standalone month-end close automation platform, but then a totally separate PM over here. ClientHub might be the best marriage of those two things in a single place. So if you want more power user month-end close automation stuff, but a version of that is inside of your practice management system, worth giving ClientHub a look. Check out the link down in the show notes. Now, one sneaky benefit of carving cleanup bookkeeping out from just bookkeeping, because I actually used to approach cleanup bookkeeping as just bookkeeping, but ultimately we started talking about them as two separate things in our firm because the times that we wanted to do each looked different. We got to the point where we would do cleanup bookkeeping for very, very few clients during tax season. We did a lot of once a year 1040 work. So our tax season, there's no way around it. It was very, very busy that time of year. But what you found as folks brought you their entity books during tax season was the last thing in the world that you wanted to be doing in January, February, and March was cleaning up people's books. And so increasingly we put pressure on people. This either needs to happen before year end or it needs to happen after April 15th, in the summer. And we oftentimes don't treat cleanup bookkeeping for the monster that it is, completely distinct of business tax prep. It's a project that can actually be done at a different time. If we're in there in November, if we're in there in December, the prospect of cleaning it up is vastly different than if we're just finalizing things. So getting into what are all the ways that we can present cleanup bookkeeping in a 3-tier proposal, with the goal of the difference between the tiers not being differences in scope, but rather differences in how premium it is delivered. So gold is first class on the airplane, bronze is the main cabin, silver is business class. This is not a Southwest flight. That's actually a great analogy for how we historically approach our work and how we sell it to clients. And this is me. I'm culprit number one is you let everybody on the bus for the same price and then expect them all to kind of find their seats and hope when they get off the plane that they're happy. I am reeling at how good of an analogy that is. And I realize Southwest is changing now. They're going to assign seats. But I've talked about this concept so many times, and that might be the best concise framing, is we're trying to get from being Southwest to being something else. I don't know, Delta. It even has some positive connotations from I'd rather identify as Delta, not Southwest, where everybody's argy-barging down the gangway and man, they just put some straw down in the back of the plane and that's all you get. So to that end, how do we dress up cleanup bookkeeping so that there is a gold plan that feels more premium, a bronze plan that feels less premium? Obviously, the upsides to having a gold option where folks can pay, 2x, maybe 2.2x as much, but it's not all that much more work for us. The benefits of that are obvious, but the benefits of the bronze, sometimes we don't think about enough, is the benefit of knowing who will self-select to bronze. And we might have an idea of who might go with the cheapest option. You've got those C and D clients who you mark the bill down and they still complain. Letting those people self-select and say, hey, we're all the folks who won't pay any more here. And to be clear, this is not always their fault. The whole notion of 3-tier proposals is we are capturing both a client's willingness and ability to pay. Not everybody has the same ability to pay, and that is not always their fault. It is why rich clients are easier to make money on than those that are not. It's why industries where there's an abundance of cash will generally pay better than those that are not, right? Now, the reality is somebody's still got to do restaurant books, right? And you could choose to be that firm if you want to. Doesn't mean that those are bad people, but we do also have to be mindful of the trap of being like, I'm the firm that's here for my community, and then getting sucked into a bunch of low bono work, because that can be a slippery slope to collecting the cheapskates and convincing ourselves that we're helping people out when it's like, no, actually, these people have money. There's other people that really don't have any money. If we're going to help our community, should we be helping them? But that is a benefit of those of 3-tier proposals we don't think about enough, is having a list of all the people that select bronze. That's very valuable because most of the time, those are not the folks that you're going to want to build your firm around. This year's gold is probably next year's silver. This year's bronze, they're the guy across the street's silver next year. Okay, how do we dress up cleanup bookkeeping? The big one, what time of the year does it happen? Am I willing to do that during tax season or not? This is really nice that you can actually have a different answer for this every year and take sort of a logical progression where right now, maybe you do a ton of cleanup bookkeeping in your busiest season. Maybe that's tax season. Maybe you're a bookkeeping practice and that's just January. Like everybody's hounding you. You got folks that just bring you their books once a year. They're like, I need it in January so I can go take it to my tax accountant. And you're like, buddy, you know I got other things to do in January, right? So whatever period of the year you're trying to push that work out of, this is an opportunity to say like, hey, we've got 3 seats, not 3. We've got 13 seats on the gold tier. These are the only people that we can do during that busy season. You want a seat on the bus? Here's the price. And the beauty here is it is all the same work, simply done in a different order, but done in a much more profitable way. Like mentally, when I'm thinking gold tier, I'm usually thinking 2.2 to 2.5x the price. And so if bronze is what we do today, and let's say the margins on that are 40%, if we're charging 2.2x, hang on, I just gave myself a much too complex math problem to do live. Okay, let's say it's a $100 project, 40% margin. You make $40 on it, right? A 2.2x price increase. That means the project's now $220, but the cost is still $60. That means your profit is going from $40 to $160. That is 4x the profit. Maybe the cost is a little bit more. Maybe you're doing a little bit more work to deliver it. But if all we're doing is charging for access to a different place in the queue, isn't that the exact same work in a different order? Now it's just made vastly more profitable? Okay, so most obvious thing you can do here, access to the Admirals Club. Admirals Club members are first in the queue. What level of priority are they assigned? That actually can be a totally different thing than what time of the year you do the work. So maybe just the golds you will do during the busy season, but maybe there's another level, or maybe that's silver, where you do the work in your preferred time of the season, not the busy season, but the silvers are at the front of the line that time of the year. Now, the thing you actually find as you get more into this is there are levels to this. In fact, you can take this year's golds. Next year, you can even split up that gold, where all those golds go into a 3-tier option where it's like, well, do you want gold, diamond, or zirconium? Wait, no. Is zirconium the fake gold? Platinum. And maybe now platinum is like, I'm going to run a mastermind every quarter, and I'm going to let 8 people into that. So this will continue to evolve. And that's why this year's gold is, basically next year's silver, because your firm offerings are continuing to kind of evolve with those folks that are willing to pay more. There are so many clients on our client list for whom we have not found that ceiling yet. But because we're so fixated on the cheapskates that are at the floor, it keeps us from ever considering expanding what the ceiling looks like. Okay, other ideas to make cleanup bookkeeping feel more premium. The expertise of the person they have access to. So how senior is the person that they're talking with? That's always a good consideration here. A receipt matching report. So this is something we do in our bookkeeping service. We give them a very clear visual of like, here's the stuff that we have documentation for, and here's the stuff that we don't. Sometimes a materiality threshold would be taken into account there. In some ways, it's like a visualization of sort of exposure of stuff where it's like, hey, you probably ought to have documentation for this. 1099 readiness report. What are the transactions that or the recipients that may need a 1099? W-9 outreach. We can do that W-9 outreach for you. Or do you want to do it? We did this for a number of clients. We would reach out to the recipients directly, say that like we work with the client, we could copy them on the email or something like that, and we would gather that information ourselves. Even within something that feels pretty turnkey in terms of cleanup bookkeeping, where it's like, how do you dress that up to be fancy? There's a fancy version of everything. And if you look around in the world, it's kind of cool to see once you notice it. I don't know if it's cool. It's like capitalism. But the reality is different people, like based on their identities, will look at bronze, silver, and gold and not even see the features. And if they see that they're on bronze or they were last year, they'll be like, oh, I don't want to be on bronze because I don't identify as a bronze person. I'm a winner. And especially if you work with entrepreneurs, many of them, successful people, which most of the folks on our client list, like by normal standards, they are very, very successful people. Most of those people, they're not hanging out at the gate at the airport with all the plebs. They're at the lounge. They're ultra zirconium rewards members. But because oftentimes we aren't wired that way, we don't think of delivering services that way, right? But man, I've talked to so many people where when you flip the switch on this, it is like an instant bottom line boost and actually gives you a very logical path to moving forward to how you will build out these packages year over year and identify the clients that you can probably help to find a new home because they're not like taking your firm in the direction that you want to go. I super recommend if you do cleanup bookkeeping, be very mindful of the times of year that you're willing to do this. 3-tier proposals, actually, if you are blocked at the notion of like cold turkey, not doing any cleanup bookkeeping anymore during tax season, 3-tier proposals are a great way to start splitting up what you're willing to do and the price that you're willing to do it at. Now, don't make the mistake. I mean, it's better than not doing it. But there's a world where you can make the mistake here to say, we want to do less cleanup bookkeeping during busy season. And this is, so many people are going to do this. And you'll say, here's bronze, silver, and gold. Only on gold will we do your cleanup bookkeeping during busy season. And you charge 2.5x as much. And everybody says yes to it. And you're like, well, crap. And again, this is better than nothing. Because you're now getting paid 2.5x what you got paid last year to do the same work that you did last year. But the even better version of this is to say, hey, we've only got like 15 seats, 15 companies we can do this for, or 500, or whatever that looks like for you. There should be a real capacity constraint there because even that drives more people to buy. They're like, oh, I don't want to miss out. I got to get this now. And it's actually, it's real scarcity. Like it's reflective of how much you actually have the time to do. So rather than like hiding that and keeping that capacity to ourselves, let's put that capacity out there where people can see it because it will also drive buying behavior. Very much recommend you think about that though, like the times of the years when you're willing to do cleanup bookkeeping and when you won't. And then think about how all this funnels into your practice management system and your task templates. And then the expectations that get communicated down to your team. Maybe you're a little stressed about being able to deliver on all the different things we're carving out in the bronze, silver, gold plan. That for sure needs to be part of our project deadlines and the tasks as they're communicated. But in a world where this work is 30 to 40% more profitable, investing in, an admin that can help with some oversight or making sure that like all the planes are flying on schedule, you can afford to do that. And it's giving you a path towards like in the future, just having a fundamentally more profitable firm. If you're the big boss, I encourage you to pull your team into this as much as you can. Share the service library resource in the show notes. Make this a team effort rather than you trying to drive this thing through by yourself. We got a few more installments of this summer series left. This is kind of prime time to like nail down your systems because we got to lock this stuff down to then lead into renewals, which are a big time profit opportunity. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.